You ready?
Yes.
So, today, we're clearly talking about what, Aaron?
We are talking about
The debate.
the debates. I was about to go
Did
in
you
a different
forget?
direction. No.
We want to talk
I
about
was thinking about the
today?
dumbest thing I could possibly say to throw you off, but I had nothing on the spot.
There's
so,
only a few things that can throw me off.
and I've never seen it.
Well, you've seen one where I got a cell phone call.
Oh,
Actually,
yeah.
3 in a row that I thought somebody's life was in danger.
Yeah, that's true. Ruin their podcast, really.
Yeah.
But
That was somebody else's podcast, though. That's not ours, so I don't have to worry about that. So today, I'm Marshall. This is Aaron. We're the two opinionated guys. And today we're going to be talking about the debate. And we're going to recap that, right?
can you even call it a debate, though?
I think you can call it a debate.
You can.
I mean, let me ask you this. Do you feel like it was highly anticipated?
Oh my gosh, dude. I mean, and here's the interesting thing is that, not that I'm young, but I'm young enough that I remember when I didn't care about politics. And so maybe I'm speaking a little out of turn, but I feel like this had to have been one of the most anticipated presidential debates in like this century.
I feel like that too. I had people at work going, "Oh, I got to get off. I'm going to watch the debate."
Yeah, you had like a listening party or a watching party.
We had to watch. Yeah, we did. I remember texting my wife and saying, "Hey, people are coming over," and she's like, "Are you kidding me?" Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was definitely highly anticipated. I got an alert on my phone that said the NFL this week had less than 1 million viewers. And I don't know what the viewership is, and I'll look it up, maybe put it up there, of the debate. But I got to imagine there were more views of the debate than there were of NFL this
Yeah,
year.
but I feel like sadly with how social justice warriors are taking over all sports, like that's just the natural path of their ratings. It's declining.
Yeah.
And things like, what is it, Fox News gets more than
CNN and
but
all
then-
of them combined, really.
But,
MSNBC.
yeah, but then like what's the thing that Ben Shapiro or some political commentator that gets routinely way more than like any cable news networks?
Oh, or is that Adam Levine or whatever?
Yeah, maybe that's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, they're getting more than us, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, where did you watch the debate, or did you listen to it?
I listened to it the first time through, and then I watched tidbits of it, and because I was like, I usually consume content by watching it, so it was kind of weird that I was forced to listen to it, and I thought, oh, who cares? It's like audiobooks, like who cares? It's the same thing. But I quickly realized that it was weird not seeing their faces, so I decided to tune in and rewatch the whole thing. Only it became unwatchable about 15 minutes in. I was like, I can't.
Did you watch / listen to the whole thing?
I did, yeah.
Okay, because my wife got the same way. I think she went upstairs halfway through. She's like, I can't stand it. It's too stressful. And then I was talking to my sister yesterday, and she's like, we couldn't finish it. We had to turn it off. It was just ridiculous. We had to turn it off. But you know what she said? She told me, she goes, it doesn't matter if Trump, if he hadn't interrupted as much as he did. It doesn't really matter what he would have done. She goes, they would have painted him in a bad light.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing to me is that, like, the commentator was so bad.
Chris Wallace.
And I go, have we ever seen a presidential debate that wasn't rigged against Republicans?
It kind of seemed like it was, right? I think in past debates, there's usually more than one moderator. And maybe because of COVID, they couldn't space themselves enough.
Mm-hmm.
Or if this was just a ploy to get Joe Rogan as the next moderator to go, oh man, he botched this up so bad.
Mm-hmm. That would have been way better.
Do you feel like Trump interrupted too much?
I do, yeah. And I think it's getting to a point where in his presidency, like, and I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said, in 2016, you needed somebody who was so anti-political correctness to counterbalance how politically correct the left had gotten, and he served that purpose. But I feel like now his job should be to be a little bit more moderate, maybe, and a little bit, not moderate as in like leaning more left, but just more tone it back a little bit. And I think coupling that need with the fact that Joe Biden, with left with enough airtime, would have shot himself in the foot, all Trump had to do was tone it back a little bit, and he didn't. He seemed like he amplified
Okay,
it.
I feel like there's a few things in there. One, I want to get to a little conspiracy theory with you about a wire.
Love it.
We can get to that here in a second. Do you feel like, because you listened, and I talked to somebody the other day who said they listened to it, and then they said, I just felt like it was ridiculous listening to it. Trump interrupted a bunch. And he goes, but then I went back and watched it, and he goes, it was a totally different perception, I guess, when he goes, I actually felt like then they both interrupted. And do you feel like Chris Wallace made the interruptions seem worse than they were? Because even though Trump was inserting himself, which he often does, Chris Wallace kept making it like, hey, please, sir. And then he would like, let me finish in the question. Even on that one where Trump already knew what he was getting at, and Wallace wouldn't let him. He's like, let me finish the question, and then Trump said, I didn't realize I had to debate you too. Do you feel like that played into it a little bit?
I do, and I feel like there's ways to interrupt people that are, well, like in one capacity is meant to promote a conversation, like I have to interrupt you to get this conversation reignited, and then there's the, talking to someone who doesn't speak your language very well on the phone, and you're cutting each other off constantly, and I feel like that's more what I was hearing from Chris Wallace. It was almost like an attempt to stifle the speech and to make it seem worse than it was, because it was like they didn't want to let him get any one-liners off. I bet they took notes from the Hillary Clinton debate where he was zinging her right and left.
Oh, he did. Yeah,
they definitely didn't
want. Because he'd be in jail.
Yeah, and he seemed a lot more calm and collected, but he also got to talk a lot more. So I definitely think the interrupting played a huge part in it.
That was a clip that I saw circulating all over the internet. Oh, can't wait for the debate. Remember the last time this happened because you'd be in jail. And all those little things that he plugged in. Let's go to that conspiracy theory here for a second, which I'm not sure how much of it is, but that he was wearing a wire. And it showed at one point in time underneath his jacket, and who knows where he would have had it on his person. But is there any way that you think that there's some truth to that? Part of the reason why they say Trump interrupted so much was because if he was getting information through a wire, him interrupting so much would throw off everybody's trying to tell him what to do, and it would just get him to trip up.
Well, I think that, to be clear, this day and age, I don't look at much from the Democratic Party as a conspiracy theory. Like, I have seen them turn a blind eye to so many ridiculous, like the whole Hunter Biden thing. We could probably do a whole podcast on the Hunter Biden conspiracy about him getting money from Russia and doing all of these things, and Joe Biden sort of threatening to fire the lawyer from, Ukraine or whatever. And the Democrats seem to turn a blind eye to it. So at this point, I'm not even entirely sure it's a conspiracy theory to assume that the Democratic Party was propping Joe Biden up in some capacity. I saw, too, that wire, the picture of him tucking a wire. What was it?
Did you see it during the debate? I saw the picture and the thing float around, but I never saw it during the debate.
I didn't. And I guess where I would leave it is I think it could very well happen, and I wouldn't put it past them to cheat, but I also don't. It wouldn't surprise me at all. And so I don't know how much of a conspiracy theory that really is.
Well, let's go to the white supremacy thing, because I think that's the one that everybody's kind of sinking their teeth into, and the Democrats are, kind of at the Republicans right now going, hey, why didn't he just denounce white supremacy? Why did he not just say, and maybe for the fun of it, I will play the person who is really drilling you on this one. Why did he not do that? Why not when he said, hey, will you denounce white supremacy?
Sure. So, other than that, he's a complete racist? Other than that?
So you believe he's a complete racist?
Yeah, no. No, I think the trouble with
just to be clear, because we don't want things to get lost here like they did in the election. You think he's a racist?
I don't want to denounce it. That's what I'll say. No, I don't think he's a racist. And I think the narrative with left-wing politics these days is to basically just lob attacks at people's character and then force them to defend it. And going way back to like 3 podcasts ago, the Rules for Radical by Sal Alinsky, and the Rules for Radical book is basically an outline of how the left handles their arguments these days. And one of the rules written right in there is basically to ridicule your opponent, because there's no good counter to being ridiculed.
But isn't that what Trump does? Doesn't he ridicule his opponent?
Which is great. Which is probably why he got in. So
I'm sorry, so do you agree with that or you disagree with that? I'm a little confused.
I do agree with it. I think it's a useful tool, but I think that unfortunately you have an entire generation of young people who are lefties, right? They're Democrats. And maybe the older Democrats, the wiser ones, the people who are more in control of what they're doing, say, yeah, if we call him a racist, he can't really defend against it other than just say, no, I'm not a racist. But there's a lot of younger people who just go, oh, that must mean he's racist, right? And I think that was kind of the angle of the entire thing, was like, denounce it. But you and I had a conversation earlier in the week where I said it's unfortunate because it's annoying when they create these straw man arguments where they go, well, I'm going to call you this, and then you are that if you don't defend yourself. And I think what Trump was doing by not denouncing it, he has denounced it, to be crystal clear. You know he's denounced it, right?
How so?
He's literally denounced it.
But why? Okay.
He said the words, I denounce white supremacy.
Well, irregardless of whether he's denounced it.
Words.
Those are words. Irregardless of whether he's denounced it in the past, the people who are watching this, and I think this is probably the misstep that happened. There's the party line voters, the people that are like on the fringe. You have the Democrats who the hardcore Democrats, their mind wasn't changed, right? And you have the hardcore Republicans, and their mind probably wasn't changed. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Okay. So then you have everybody down the middle who's going, okay, what are you doing? And when he says, hey, will you denounce white supremacy? Why not just yes? Emphatically yes.
Well, I think that he did denounce it. He didn't say, I denounce it. He didn't use those words, but he basically said, okay, who do you want me to denounce? And it's unfortunate that he did it that way because he left a lot of ammunition for all the news media outlets and the Democrats to make it look like he basically just said, I don't want to denounce it. Mm-hmm. But if you remember right in the debate, he did say, yes, I will. Or he said something very he didn't say flat out, I denounce it, but he said, absolutely, who do you want me to denounce? Because he was basically...
And I said the Proud Boys.
The Proud Boys, and then he said something...
Well, he said name. He said, all right, give me a name.
Give me a name, right.
Who said Proud Boys? Was that Biden or was that...
I think it was Biden, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why didn't they go with Proud Boys? Why wouldn't they just go with KKK?
What do you know about the Proud Boys?
What do I know about them?
Yeah, well, because the reason they didn't go with the KKK is because didn't he just put them on the national terrorist list?
That and Antifa, I think, right? He put him on he put him on the domestic terrorist list.
Right, but you can't use that against Trump if he just put the KKK on the list. So the Proud Boys have been the easy one for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know anything about them?
I just know they're a far right movement, and they like to show up. And I don't know exactly what their agenda is, but what they've been claimed to do in the media is show up and create mayhem.
They're kind of like the antithesis of Antifa in a weird way, but I think
Antifa is just an idea.
Yeah, it's just an idea. Just like 9/11 was just some people, right?
Oh, gosh, that's it. That's the same comparison.
In my book, it's the same. They're just minimalizing some terrorism.
You might be a racist.
Guess we never know.
I mean, if you're a Donald Trump supporter,
look at the color of my skin. Obviously, I'm a racist, right?
Well, that's what they're teaching. I mean, did you catch that? What Chris Wallace asked about the question about education and some of the things that Trump has stopped, and he said, yeah, because of the things that they're teaching.
Mm-hmm. Critical theory.
Critical theory, yeah. Which is basically the color of your skin dictates whether you're racist or not.
Yeah, it's basically a racist teaching, and he's basically saying, I'm not gonna allow critical race theory to be taught in schools. And again, Chris Wallace did a really poor job, either intentionally or unintentionally, I don't know which, but he spun it to racial sensitivity training, which that's not what Trump cutting critical race theory out of education has nothing to do with sensitivity training.
Well, do you feel like, going back to that, do you feel like Trump had a misstep with the white supremacy thing, or did he handle it just fine?
I think he misstep. I think it was a lot of missteps. I think that, again, going back to the beginning of our talk here, Trump's big misstep was he just swung too hard. He just went in too hard, because when you're up against a Biden, and I think the ultimate defense for the Democratic Party as they are now is not more effort and being more, crazy, but leave a little room to breathe. And I think Joe Biden would have shot himself in the foot. So yeah, I think he mishandled it, because I think he could have just said, yes, I denounce it and moved on. And I think it would have satisfied more people.
So I'm wondering, because there was so much hype in this debate, because of the way that both of them kind of acted. Mm-hmm. And maybe we can put a little bit more of it on Trump, because I think Trump tried to play a card that maybe didn't play out, right? Mm-hmm. I think he tried to play hey, I'm going to trip up Biden, and he's going to say something stupid.
Yeah. Well, let's just get into that for 2 seconds. What do you think their two strategies were, if you had to sum it up into a couple sentences?
I think Biden's get by. Mm-hmm. I'm going to get out there, and I've got a lot of pre-rehearsed stuff, because I don't think it's a secret, and I'm not sure any of our listeners or any of my friends or even people in the Democratic Party can deny that there's something mentally wrong with him. I mean, mm-hmm. he's degrading mentally, and when we vote for Biden, when the people vote for Biden, they're really voting for Harris, because mm-hmm. she's going to take over, whether it be in the first year, second year, whatever it is. If he gets elected, that's what's going to happen. So I don't think you can deny his mental capability right now.
Or lack of. So do you think he's aware of his mental lack of capability?
Well, I should hope so. I mean, my dad suffers from Alzheimer's right now, mm-hmm. and he's in stage 4, and I think that's out of 7. And he's aware of it. He's aware of and it gets frustrating, and you get more irritated because you don't want it to be true, mm-hmm. and you want to remember the things, but you just can't. And I feel like Biden's stuck somewhere in there where he's aware of it, but he's like, I'm already this far.
Yeah,
right? I've already kind of pot committed. I got to carry this out, because this is the front that I put on now, and I've got a lot of people counting on me. So I think his strategy was, I'm going to memorize these lines, and his party strategy, I'm going to memorize these lines and I'm going to have some good answers, because if you notice, he didn't answer one policy. No, I don't think there's a single policy in there. Mm-hmm. All he did was say how bad Trump is doing, what he doesn't like about Trump, and he couldn't articulate or put into words and action what he's going to do for our country. Mm-hmm. Okay. And it's funny then when you talk about, and I will get to like maybe what the other part of your question, but when you talk to some other Democrats, they'll say, "Oh man, I can't believe Trump did this or Trump did that," and you kind of defend it and you go, "Okay, well, Trump." He did denounce white supremacy. I mean, he did say yes. And if you read the transcript, it got a little lost, I think, in all of the over talking. But when you read the transcript, you'll go, "Oh, okay, yeah, he did." But then he went right to Biden, and he said, "Well, you denounce Antifa," and he's like, "Antifa doesn't exist, just an idea." And you tell that to some of the Biden supporters, and like, "I'm not defending Biden." Mm-hmm. Okay, well, what are you doing then? What are you doing?
It's kind of like a resurgence of the never Trump, but they're just not using those words because Biden is enough electable that Hillary was so awful, and I mean they called her Hillary. I mean a lot of leftists didn't like Hillary Clinton; they thought she was evil. So the never Trump campaign started, and I think with Biden, unfortunately, it's like they accept him a little bit more. And I feel like this is the new never Trump sort of campaign.
But what doesn't make sense to me, and this is why I would like to get like a true Biden supporter on here, if you can agree, which I think most of us can, that Trump isn't the best guy in the world, personally, right? Mm-hmm. And Biden's not the best person in the world, right? They're just not the greatest people, which would be right on par with every other politician out there, right? Mm-hmm. Then let's go to their policies. Can we go to their policies and let's just chip away at them one by one, and then let's see where.
But here's the problem with that is that Trump has done so many tremendous things that regard. I'm not even talking policy with foreign affairs. I'm not even talking policy with social workers, welfare and subsidies. I'm talking literally economic policy, and he never gets any credit for that. All they want to do is talk about how he rolled back emissions and he rolled back all these things. They want to focus on all the things he didn't do. So even if we made it about policy, he still wouldn't win that because the people who, despite an overwhelming body of work that he's done that's been done tremendous good for the economy, obviously, people would never pay attention to that. The people who hate him would only focus on the negative policies. So I don't even think a conversation about policy would have been any more fruitful. Maybe for us. Mm-hmm. And maybe at the worst case scenarios, it would have exposed Biden's lack of policies, which is probably what you're looking for. But I don't know, man. I feel like there probably was no way. The best way that could have gone, and it didn't go, unfortunately, is for Trump to scale it back a little bit and let Joe Biden do a lot more talking and maybe just counterpunch.
Do you think that that's going to be the strategy that
I hope so. Gotta hope so. I think there was a lot of pent-up, emotion, and so I think when they went at it, there was nerves, and they went at it hard.
I don't know when the next election is, but do you feel like this helped or did it hinder people watching the next one? Are they gonna come into the next one whenever it is and say, yeah, I'm gonna get off work early or on time and we're gonna do a watch party or whatever it is? I mean, do you think that is still up there?
I think it's gonna be more popular than the first one because I think that the first one was such a crap show that I think people are gonna want to tune in either out of curiosity to see if it could possibly be worse or they want to see if it's gonna get tremendous.
If they pass one of those policies where we can mute the mic if we want to, that'll probably get some more.
Yeah.
Some more people.
Well, it's interesting because there was a focus group.
Will they mute the mic if Biden's about to mess up?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
Although, in fairness, I'll call myself out. I'm shocked he didn't get COVID and he actually did show up for the debate.
I am too.
I thought he was not going to show up.
Yeah.
But I'm curious. I heard of a focus group, rather, after the debates were over. And basically the outcome of the focus group was that, 33% of the focus group said they're less likely to vote in general now. That's how bad it was. They were just like...
Oh, where were they at? Were they any one party or were they just...
No, I think it was a pretty mixed group, but it was basically who are you more likely to vote for Trump, more likely to vote for Biden, or less likely to vote, period? And 33% of them said they're less likely to vote, period.
Did you hear Telemundo? Telemundo said their ratings were we thought Trump won.
Yeah.
I mean, it was 70, 60.
Is that like a
cultural thing?
Or maybe a lost in translation thing?
Maybe they're they were arguing?
Yeah,
right. It sounded like they were arguing. They were just talking.
So racist.
I think that's just accurate.
Yeah, that was interesting. And then there was, I I think the big takeaway for me, which sort of affirmed my assumption after the debate, was something like 48% thought Biden won, a CBS poll. 48% thought Biden won, or 48%. 41% thought Trump won, and then the rest of them basically were like, it doesn't, like, nobody won. It was a draw or something like that. I don't remember what it was.
Going back to your Proud Boys, like they took whatever Trump said and they're wearing that now. Did you hear that? They're like, oh, stand by. All right, we're standing by. I mean, that they're like using that line. Okay, hey, we're ready. We're standing by.
Interesting. It's not good for Trump.
Well, I don't think so. I don't think so either.
So I'm curious who you think won, because I feel like you and I are probably going to differ on this.
I feel like Biden won.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the only reason why I'll say this, because I watch a lot of sports, and I'm very partial to, the 49ers, and when they lose, I have this feeling in my stomach, and I get really wrapped up in it, and I'm trying not to in my latter years in life, and I don't need it to control me, but I get this feeling in me, and last night I was like really hyped about last night, whatever night it was, I was really hyped about the debate, and afterwards, because you could just feel it, when you're like, Trump, just stop talking, man. Just stop talking. And like Wallace is getting you. You're getting owned by him. Like if he's playing one side or the other, and let's say he's playing Biden's side, because that's what I think. Well, you're getting worked. You're losing it. And you could have won against both of them, but you didn't. And you kept baiting into the arguing. And I don't know what's wrong with him, because you could see his face, and he's like, okay, I can stay silent. No, not any longer. And so afterwards, I had that same feeling, like
the 49ers lost.
The 49ers lost. It was like, that's my team lost, and that's the only reason I would say that he won.
Yeah, no, I think that's valid. That's kind of that's a good metaphor for what I felt too. It was like me watching a sports team that I like lose, or honestly, the last time the elections happened, I had the same feeling where I was like, oh my gosh, this is just really hard, and then it got better and better. But it was the same feeling after the debates, because I really wanted Trump to smash him, because I really thought it was such an obvious strategy need. All he had to do was go, and Trump is such a good defensive player. I know people don't think that, but he really is. He'll sit back, he'll let you ask a dumb question, he'll spin the words around in a way, and he'll zing you. He's just great at one-liners. He just had to do a little of that. But he went out like a rabid pit bull, and he was just talking and talking. And I think that in the beginning, he was probably losing worse. It got a little better at the end, because I think it became so obvious that Chris Wallace was like siding with Biden. And I think that helped Trump a little bit. But in the beginning, like the first 15 or 20 minutes, Trump was just talking nonstop. And even I was like, dude, let this guy, let Biden talk a little bit.
Yeah, I think everybody that was at my house, was feeling the same way. And I don't know that a winner or loser matters in a debate necessarily, especially the first one. I don't know that it matters, because these polls come out and go, I mean, it's how you feel, right? And we've already kind of maybe decided. I'm not sure that's decided for us. You have the middle of the road voters who it might matter, but I don't know if they're listening to an ABC or CBS poll and going, well, we think Joe Biden won the debate by 5 points. Then are they going, oh, well, since Joe Biden won the debate, then let's vote for him? Yeah. Is that something people do?
Well, I do wonder how much those polls matter, similarly to you, because I mean, obviously in 2016 they didn't matter.
Right? Polls can we trust polls? I know I heard somebody say the other day, they're trying to be really careful this year because of what happened in 2016, so they're taking extra precautions about it. And I'm like, well, how can they? What can they do?
Yeah, what can they? I don't even know how those polls are collected, so that would be the first question. But also, I feel like a lot of
them dead people.
Yeah, just like votes.
How many people died this year? Well, those votes are going to Biden.
Although I do think a low, going back to the focus group, I think that if more people choose to not vote, that's probably a win for Trump, because I think that the popular vote is probably going to go to Joe Biden, and not that matters with the Electoral College, but I think that a low voter turnout, because in 2016 it was like a record low voter turnout.
You think we're going to have more voters this year?
I think we will, because I think that Trump has energized enough people, for good or bad, that they're going to show up. I know that like the silent majority is going to be like, oh, we really got to come out this time. But I also think there's going to be a lot of, lefties who were like, Trump sucks, Hillary sucks, I'm not going to show up. And this time they're like, nope, can't let that happen again. Got to show up. But I think a low voter turnout would be good for Trump.
What wasn't that Hillary's thing? She's like, not enough of my voters showed up. Like I had it.
Yeah.
But they just didn't show up.
Although she won the majority, so I don't know how she can say that. I guess the Electoral College in a way, but like, yeah.
Did you read her book? What happened?
Oh God, no.
When like there's I always feel this way about books. Like, I feel like a book that's thicker than this, which I'm holding out very small fingers, is adequate. Anytime it gets longer than that, you're like, you're droning on. You're just repeating yourself.
If it's if it's a story or an autobiography, unless you're really trying to learn something, but then that's like a documentary too. To me, if a documentary is like less than 2 hours, I'm not watching it because it's not in depth enough for me. Similar if I'm trying to learn something with a book. If I go in to learn a subject and the book is this big, I'm like, that's not enough. But if I'm trying to be entertained, this is just right.
Yeah. Well, that's how I felt like looking at her book. I was like, what happened? Well, it took you that thick of a book to explain.
Let me ask you this though, before we get any further or have to wrap up. What do you think about the idea of sort of Joe Biden being in politics? Why do so many people not pay attention to that?
Well, I was going to ask you, which might
47 years.
Well, you had on your topic list, like, what were some of the best zingers? And that was one of them on there. Like, I've done more in 47 days than you've done in 47 years. And there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, you can't really ignore that. And when people go, oh my gosh, Trump did this, they're blaming him on everything. And you see these memes out there. He's like, listen, you're blaming me for everything that's happened. And I've only been in office 3 years.
Yeah.
How can you possibly? And I go, that's a super valid. I mean, even if Trump was screwing up everything, which I don't think he is, but let's pretend he didn't have anything good in policies, in executive orders and things that he's made better and the economy better. Even if he was screwing up, you go, the dude's only done it for 3 years and he's never been in politics before.
Well, exactly, dude. And the hypocrisy, and again, this is my word of 2020, is the glaring hypocrisy. The same people who will point out all the flaws that are happening and blame them squarely on him are the same people who go, oh, but the economy, that was Obama's.
My son just made a song I was listening to. I sent it to you yesterday.
Oh, was that his?
That's cool. He made it up and said something about hypocrites on there. And I said, oh, is it about Democrats? And he goes, why would it be about Democrats?
I'm not a political singer by Bob Dylan.
Right. And I was like, I don't know. You said hypocrites. So that's what I was saying.
I feel like the zingers too were a little bit pre-planned, especially, not so much from Trump, because I think Trump is actually kind of an off-the-cuff guy, but I think Joe Biden.
I feel like Trump has 0 things written down.
Right.
And his campaign manager says, okay, don't say anything stupid.
Yeah, here's some buzzwords you can't say.
Yeah, and then the next debate is going to be, okay, Trump, I understand you're practicing. Don't interrupt.
Yes.
That's all you got to do out there. I don't care what you say at this point in time. You can even go down, whatever path you want to, and just don't interrupt.
Well, I think that's probably true. I think, and he even said himself, he's like, I'm not preparing for this. Like, you don't get as good as me by preparing or something like that. But Joe Biden had a couple of funny ones that, I thought they were okay. Like something about talking about infrastructure and how he could pitch his $750 because the joke being he paid like $750 on like $1 billion in revenue. That was kind of funny. I thought that was funny, but also made me feel like the whole thing was canned because I'm like, there's no way Joe Biden thought of that himself.
I had some people posting on there. He only paid $750 in taxes or something like that, and I said, listen. I'm all for tax reform, and I think Trump's done that. But I mean, him taking advantage of the system. I mean, wouldn't you? I think you asked Peter that last week. Like, wouldn't you? And he's like, I guess I've never thought of it. Yeah, I guess I should. Huh?
Yeah, it's the dumbest thing. I love when people blame business owners for taking advantage of tax laws that the government created, that by people you voted in. You voted them in, then they created tax loopholes to offer to businesses, and then when businesses legally take advantage of it, then all of a sudden the business owner's the worst.
Well, we talked about some zingers, but there were a few things that I want to know what you thought if it was crossing the line or not. One was Trump telling Biden, don't use the word smart with me. You're not smart. You graduated the bottom of your class. You said you graduated the top, you graduated the bottom. I mean, do you think that was like too much to attack him?
Well,
like that?
It's relative. Because if you had asked me 5 years ago, relative to the political climate, I would have been like, dang, that guy's not getting voted in, right? So in that case, yes. But in this day and age, not at all. Because similarly...
Isn't that what people say? Hey, look, listen, I love Trump. I just wish he would be more unifying with our country. Instead, he's more divisive. Isn't that a divisive statement?
It is a divisive statement, I guess. But he's a divisive guy. And I feel like basically he is the guy...
That's not selling me on
well, hey, listen, you're sold more than I'm sold even.
Okay.
But I also think this, that in a political climate like we have, where anything is on the table, you have to, similar to business owners taking advantage of tax loopholes that are on the table, you have to use the tools that are given to you. And unfortunately in 2020, fortunately or unfortunately, that's just the nature of it. It's low blows. It's zingers, it's one-liners, anything is on the table. I mean, they're calling us racist just for being white people.
Well, that's true.
I feel like calling somebody dumb is not that bad.
Well, I didn't like the fact that Biden, and I think that, there was moments that clearly whatever was going on in his head and whatever Trump did got to him because he said this clown. And he called Trump a clown twice, which I feel like he's the president of the United States. I don't feel like you should stoop down to that level when you're talking about somebody that's, whether you agree with him or not, calling the president of the United States a clown is probably not the best idea.
Yeah, but we all used to think standing for the Pledge of Allegiance was American norm too, and that's out the window. So again, it goes back to what's the climate today?
So I guess if the argument is I need Trump to be a little bit more presidential, then they threw all that out the window with Biden calling the president a clown.
I always have a feeling that the people who are telling me that, oh, I would like Trump, but he was just a little more presidential, they're Obama supporters because they go right into, now Obama, he was a statesman.
Oh yeah, he was a statesman, I guess, when it comes to...
What does that even mean? I don't even know.
I think when it comes to his...
And listen, you want to talk about crossing the line, let's talk about Joe Biden calling somebody a dog-faced pony soldier.
my son,
That's too far.
My youngest son, who's 10, made a joke. He's like, oh, Biden's just going to come out and say, hey, you lying dog-faced pony soldier. And I was like,
it's like senile grandpa
Did
jokes.
you know in his school, he's 10 years old, in his school today, because they're all online, they're talking about the debate.
The kids are?
In my 10-year-old, he's in 4th grade, and they're talking about the debate and how it went, and my wife's texting me like, oh my gosh, this is super stressful. And it ended up turning... It turned into probably a good discussion because it was like, hey, how do we treat the people who don't have the same opinion as us and things like that. But
well, that's good. Surprising that it went that way.
Yeah, it was surprising that it came up at all. I mean, what 10-year-old knows, aside from mine, what's going on in the political climate?
Is he a Biden supporter now?
Hilarious. Yeah. I mean, only for SNL sketches, I think. Hey, you think this is ironic? SNL, and if they came out and said, hey, we're going to get... They've been doing non-live shows. Like, they've been live, but they've been not in the studio. And this week, they're like, announcing we're going to be live. We're, for the first time ever, we're going to be back in the studio. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I was like, oh, and then the election's on Tuesday. Wait a minute. Oh, do you think that they're going to be back in the studio because they need to do some political SNL?
They've been Democratic promoters for a long time. So.
I know, but their political SNL stuff is just killer. It's hilarious.
Is it?
Oh, yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Killer in what way? Like, you mean...
hilarious. I thought I'd stated that.
Killer.
Killer, hilarious. It's
like,
absolutely funny.
Would you like the weekly news, or...
No. Hold on. I'm talking about SNLs when they're actually making fun of the debates. Only when they're making fun of the debates. I think SNL's a funny show. I don't like their weekend updates. They're not funny. But they're when they actually reenact the debates, when they did the
do you feel like
Democratic caucuses and all those, yeah, they're funny.
Do you feel like they're generally like bipartisan, or do you
I think so.
Mostly just roasting Republicans?
No. They're pretty. They do it pretty evenly.
Well, I guess that's different because I basically haven't watched that show in probably 5 years.
Are you kidding me right now?
I've not watched it in 5 years because, dude, every time I would watch it was just roasting, like the Dan Crenshaw thing. Remember when dude, I think it was on the weekly updates, maybe it was, but they mocked him for having one eye, and they were like, and he was a soldier, and they were like roasting that, and I thought that was like, dang, that just crossed the line for me.
Yeah, they've crossed the line on a lot of things.
Yeah.
Did you see the Emmys? Did
anybody?
Well, yeah, they did. They watched it because it was all over YouTube and the news about Jimmy Fallon and whatever that other guy was that made him shout Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
I only saw that part, but like, oh my gosh.
So here's my even though the whole thing was kind of offensive and just weird, I think what comedians haven't adjusted to, specifically comedic actors haven't adjusted to, is this no audience, right? So the timing of their jokes, usually they'll like say something funny,
get a reaction,
and pause for a second to get, and they're waiting for that reaction, and then they build off that crowd, and so then they keep going because, well, that was a funny joke, but if it wasn't, maybe they'll go in a different direction. But that whole what did I say? Jimmy Kimmel. Did I say Jimmy Fallon?
Yeah, I was going to say it was Kimmel.
It was not Fallon. I'm sorry. Jimmy Kimmel. And then the other guy that was doing it, I can't remember his name, but he kept saying these jokes, and they weren't funny, and they're in front of like this dead audience because there's no audience there. And I think it just added to it. And then you have that in the debate where you don't have an audience, and I think Trump usually gets that, right? Like he gets riled up with an audience. And so some of the zingers, or maybe if he was interrupting, if if there was an audience, they would have booed him for interrupting. Do you think he would have stopped?
No, that's true. I think he really plays well off an audience. I think that's where he's comfortable, and I think that probably is where he gets a lot of his social cues. And he's good at reading it because obviously he ramps it up and he keeps that momentum going. So that's a really good point. And going back to Jimmy Kimmel, it's just funny to me because like he's kowtowing so much right now to like the whole BLM thing and like Black Lives Matter, and he did like blackface, like he was like playing Karl Malone in full blackface, like not but like a decade
He's excused
ago.
for it.
He's excused, right? Because he's on their side.
Well, what was it? One of the zingers that Trump, was it Trump or had with oh man, I can't even remember the.
I'm sure it'll come back to you.
Yeah, thank you.
There was only like 3 because in all honesty, there was like 150 years of life experience on that stage, and they weren't that good.
No, it was the audience thing that Trump said when they said, "Hey, you're having." Chris Wallace goes, "Hey, you're having all these supporters come visit yours," and he's like, "Well, they're outside." And he goes, "But Biden's only having this many," because nobody will show.
But that was the funny part. Is like, is that even a zinger? That's just true, right? That's just true. Like, nobody is coming to these things. Like, he's not popular. But isn't that true with Hillary Clinton,
and then also when he's like, and he wears a mask everywhere he goes. This guy's always wearing a mask. They'll be 17 feet apart and nobody else in the room, and he's wearing a mask.
But wasn't Hillary Clinton's rallies really unpopular, too?
I mean, they could be. I don't know,
man. I just feel like...
I know people like... I think that's the thing about Trump supporters. And maybe he doesn't have the populist vote yet, but Trump supporters are like diehard Trump supporters.
Yeah.
They're not just like, oh yeah, I kind of like Trump. I mean, do you hear people out there going, I kind of like him?
No, but it goes back to Biden, too. It's like, I never thought of it until someone said it, but I go, I have not heard one Biden is really for this. It's always just that Biden hates Trump and Biden supporters hate Trump, and that's his whole platform. So that's it. That's all there is to it.
Well, going to the next debate, first of all, do you think there's going to be one?
Yes. Because
you were reluctant to think, you didn't think there was going to be one this time around.
And if I was a betting man, I would bet on that again. Because, I mean, I would have not thought Biden...
You don't think Biden's energized right now going, I took that one. I'm ready to do the next one.
Oh, I think Biden is senile, so he probably was the one who's like, let me in there. He's like an old man who thinks he's got old man strength, and he's like, let me get in there. I'll take care of it. I would just surprise his camp let him do it.
Well, you heard that he wanted 30-minute breaks.
Yes.
And they said...
It's funny they negotiate, by the way. They negotiate, like, deals.
Terms?
Yeah.
Well, they're definitely going to do that this time about muting mics. But what if this is, I talk about Trump's crazy strategies. What if this one was a crazy strategy to get Biden, he interrupts so much to give Biden some confidence to come back the next time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wonder how much, because Trump is a weird person that I go, there's a lot of things that work out really well for him that to me look like just huge snafus, and I'm like, okay, you just got lucky that worked. But he's so successful that I go, it can't all be luck. And so more often than not, I go, there probably is a strategy in there that I'm just not seeing. It looked very organic, like he was just kind of being vicious and he was just talking a lot. And all the audience is the viewers rather, were like, hey man, calm down, just slow down, tuck it back a little bit. Could have been strategy. I don't know. We'll see.
I like when people think Trump's just being an idiot, and then there's some secret genius behind it, and then most people go, no, there's no secret genius behind it. He was just getting lucky. Yeah,
he's got a lot of luck. And that's always the thing where I go, look at the results. He's a billionaire and he's the president. There's just no way it's just luck.
You think Biden won this one? You said.
I think he gained the most from it. Yes,
he gained the most.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, kind of he won.
All right. Well, I don't know if you have anything else to say about the...
No, it was a train wreck, and it was disappointing, and I hope the next one's better.
Train wreck, disappointing. Yeah. I think it had me going at first, and then when my wife got irritated and went upstairs, and when everybody was cringing at the interruptions, yeah, I felt like that too.
That gut feeling you said you had, that's never fun to let linger for too long, and I felt like the more I watched, the more I got that.
Is Joe Rogan on the table at all, do you think?
No.
No.
I think that he's 100% on board, and I think Trump is too, but I think that's where Biden would... Because I think that the Biden camp knows enough to know that if he was on the Joe Rogan podcast for an actual debate, Joe Rogan would not... He would be neutral. He would be asking the hard questions. And I don't know if you know this, but Joe Rogan really isn't a big Biden fan. He's really not a Trump fan, but he thinks Biden is completely senile.
Do you think, and this is a side note, but do you think he'll come out and say, I'm voting for Trump?
No.
Never.
No, I don't think so. I think he's one of those weirdos. Yes, I said weirdos. Who's going to be like, well, I'm just going to vote third party.
You do? You think that?
Yeah, I think he would do that, or he would just reluctantly vote for Biden.
Wow. Huh. I'm curious to see what happens with him because you heard about that whole Spotify thing that's going on right now.
Yeah. Which is crazy to me because Joe Rogan has been censored and trash talked and all of these things by hardcore left wingers. Yet he's weirdly immune to it, or he just is like, he doesn't understand that the left is trying to censor his speech and how evil that can be. So he does nothing about it. He still continues to vote for the Democratic Party. He calls himself a liberal.
No, I know he does. Yeah, which I think it's funny because everybody seems to like Joe Rogan, right? Whether you're on the right or the left, you seem to like him. But yet he doesn't realize, like you said, maybe the left is starting to turn against him.
Oh, yeah.
And more of the right likes Joe Rogan than the left. And
well, you heard on Spotify what they did was they actually, when they imported, quote unquote, his entire, quote unquote, archive of work, they just took out the Jordan Petersons, the Alex Joneses, the Milo Yiannopoulos. They literally just...
And he's okay with that.
Well, I think he fought to get some of them back. So he knows something's amok, but now he's getting a full dose of it because they're literally trying to say we want to be in control of
What does that mean? They paid him money. I mean, what does it mean to be on? I'm not familiar with, like, what does Spotify gain? He's exclusive to Spotify?
Exclusive to Spotify.
So unless you have a Spotify account, you can't listen to it.
Yeah, I think...
No more YouTube?
I don't think on YouTube, but they have video on Spotify. So all of his content is archived, backlogging to its beginning and currently going forward as...
$100 million.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's like the max contract. That's like the basketball player who's just signing up for that max contract.
I mean, yeah, there's football players that never see $100 million, and he's a podcaster. It's like, yeah, sure.
And dude, if you watch his old podcast, it was really clunky. And it was
much like ours.
It was like this. Ours might have been better than his to begin with. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Let's vouch.
Well, if you share your opinions with us, if you guys have other opinions that differ from ours, we'll be excited to recap the next debate when it does happen. And otherwise, thanks for listening, and email us if you have any questions, Marshall at 2opinionatedguys.com or
Arron at 2opinionatedguys.com.
Thanks, guys.